Maybe. Michigan is a village of fewer than 600 people spread across 2 square miles. The landscape is rural and flat, dominated by farmland and small family businesses. In 2014, Chelsea Ellen Bruck was 22 years old and living there with her family on a 160-acre farm. She was the youngest of 5 children. Her sisters called themselves the Bruck Girls. Chelsea had worked as a hostess at a restaurant called Olga's Kitchen for 4 years. Outside of work, she spent time with friends, listened to musical soundtracks, played video games, read books, and baked. Food was her passion. She planned to attend college and earn a culinary degree. October 26, 2014 was a Sunday. About 15 minutes outside of Maybe sits Frenchtown Township. A large Halloween party was scheduled that evening at the home of Mike Williams, lead singer of the rock band Pickaxe Preacher. The annual event had grown over the years into something resembling a small festival. Multiple bands performed. Fire breathers entertained crowds. A massive bonfire burned through the night. Alcohol and drugs circulated freely. Mike hired security guards and parking attendants to manage the sprawling property. Throughout the day and into the evening, more than 600 people came and went. The number exceeded the entire population of Maybe. Chelsea and her friends were excited to attend. Awards were given for Best Costume. Chelsea had spent weeks creating a poison ivy outfit. She arrived at the party with her best friend Rebecca. Around 1:30 in the morning, a photograph was taken of Chelsea. She was smiling. She held a bottle labeled poison, reportedly filled with cheap wine. Accounts differ on how much she drank that night. Some said she consumed a lot. Others said she paced herself and appeared relatively sober. Memories were hazy. Most guests had been drinking heavily or using drugs. At some point, Chelsea walked into a wooden post and cut her forehead. Afterwards, she asked several people for a ride home. She had left her phone in Rebecca's car because her costume had no pockets. Rebecca went to retrieve it and told Chelsea to wait where she was. When Rebecca returned with the phone, Chelsea was gone. Another friend who had agreed to drive her home also searched but could not find her. The property was crowded and chaotic. People assumed Chelsea had found another ride. The party ended as the sun came up. Guests left. Mike Williams began cleaning up the mess. Chelsea's family was waiting for her at home. Her bedroom was untouched. Her phone was not with her. By late morning, concern turned to alarm. The family contacted the authorities. Chelsea was officially listed as a missing person. Investigators went to Mike's house. The property was far out in a rural area. Roads were long and winding. It seemed unlikely Chelsea could have walked home. Her house was 8 miles away. The house and grounds were still littered with debris from the party. A bonfire smoldered. Bottles and cans were scattered everywhere. Mike admitted he did not know Chelsea and had no idea she had been at his party. The event had been that large. He was devastated by what had happened and cooperated fully with the investigation. He faced negative publicity afterward. Search parties were organized. 9 units, drones, and helicopters were deployed. Hundreds of volunteers combed the area. Cornfields behind the property were so tall that searchers disappeared into them. The investigation faced immediate challenges. Most attendees had been in costume. Many wore masks. Drugs and alcohol made memories unreliable. Monroe County Sheriff Dale Malone noted that most people were too intoxicated to provide useful information. Some thought they were being helpful, but were misremembering details or confusing events. One witness claimed to have seen Chelsea outside, crying about how to get home. Another said Chelsea left the party around 3 in the morning with a man wearing a dark hoodie, thick dark-rimmed glasses, and a side fringe. A sketch of this person was released. The accuracy of these accounts was uncertain. Harlan Bird, a party-goer, told an elaborate story about helping Chelsea when she was being harassed by 2 men and then watching her leave in their car. The story was completely fabricated. He was later arrested for lying to investigators. A woman named Carrie claimed her violent boyfriend had confessed to killing Chelsea. This was also a lie. She was arrested and charged with providing false information. Investigators believe she invented the story to cause trouble for her ex. A Facebook page called Help Find Chelsea Bruck gained more than 12,000 members. The reward for information grew. Over 1 million flyers with Chelsea's face were distributed. the search expanded into other countries. Chelsea's 23rd birthday passed. Her sister's wedding took place with an empty seat where Chelsea should have been. A few miles from the party, a red shoe was discovered in a field. It belonged to Chelsea. 6 months after she disappeared, part of her poison ivy costume was found at an industrial site. The clothing was torn and showed signs of exposure to weather. Blood was present on the fabric. An unknown male DNA profile was recovered from the costume along with Chelsea's blood. The location was near the home of Harlenberg's grandmother. He was interviewed again, took a polygraph test, and provided a DNA sample. He passed the polygraph. His DNA did not match the profile found on the costume. The coincidence was noted but led nowhere. A few weeks after the costume was discovered, construction workers were digging at an abandoned property near old railroad tracks. One worker spotted blonde hair in the soil. Human remains were found in a shallow grave. The body was identified as Chelsea Bruck. She had been dumped there naked and covered with branches. The site was about 10 miles from the party. The medical examiner determined she died from blunt force trauma to the head. The injuries were too severe to have been caused by a fist. Her nose, jaw, and eye sockets were broken. 2 teeth were chipped. The investigation shifted. More than 1,000 tips had been received. 800 interviews conducted. 34 search warrants executed. 14 subpoenas issued. 50 law enforcement agencies involved. Appeals for information continued. 27-year-old Daniel Clay had a long criminal history. Convictions for drug possession, theft, breaking and entering assault, and assaulting a police officer. He was arrested for stealing a backpack. A new law required him to provide a DNA sample. It matched the profile found on Chelsea's costume. A woman also reported that Daniel had attacked and raped her in an apartment 1 month before his DNA was matched. Daniel was brought in for questioning. He said he recognized Chelsea from the news but denied ever meeting her. When told his DNA had been found on her clothing, he said it was impossible. He admitted attending the same party. He said he took drugs and drank heavily that night. He remembered having sex with a woman in his car, but insisted it was not Chelsea. Investigators applied pressure. They told him his DNA was on the torn areas of her costume, at the crotch and the straps. Daniel initially continued to deny involvement. Detectives then lied to him. They told him Chelsea had brittle bone disease and that even minor force could injure her. Chelsea had no such condition. Daniel immediately responded that he also had a condition where his bones broke easily. He said he frequently broke his fingers. The detectives suggested that perhaps what happened was an accident. They said they knew he was not a murderer. They just needed to understand what occurred. Daniel paused and said they had hooked up. He asked for a cigarette. He then claimed Chelsea was the woman he had sex with in his car. He said he left her alive and unharmed. The detectives pressed further. A few minutes later, Daniel changed his story. He said he had been high and drunk. He was driving and saw her at the side of the road. He offered her a ride home. She accepted. This led to a sexual encounter. He claimed Chelsea asked him to choke her during sex. He said he choked her for about 30 seconds and she stopped breathing. He panicked and tried CPR but could not revive her. Daniel said he was in shock and drove around for 30 to 45 minutes. He eventually drove to railroad tracks about 10 miles from the party. He carried her body into a wooded area. He was charged with second-degree murder. He was also charged with the sexual assault that had occurred a month earlier. During a phone call from jail, Daniel confessed again to his girlfriend Kelly, still claiming it was an accident. His ex-girlfriend Jessica, the mother of his child, had worked with Chelsea. She said Daniel never mentioned Chelsea in the months after she disappeared. The day he was arrested, she received voicemails from him saying he was extremely sorry, that he had messed up big time, and that he would be gone for a very long time. Daniel pleaded not guilty. The charge was later upgraded to open murder. Open murder is a legal term used primarily in Michigan. It allows prosecutors to charge a defendant with homicide without specifying the degree. The jury or judge decides what charge is most appropriate, either first or second-degree murder. The trial began in May 2017, nearly 2.5 years after Chelsea disappeared. Forensic experts testified about what was found when her remains were discovered. The costume was largely intact except for two areas, the crotch and one of the straps. Experts testified that tears were not consistent with someone removing the costume voluntarily. The tears appeared to have been made forcefully, possibly with keys. Daniel Clay's DNA was found on the costume and the wig Chelsea was wearing. John Marin, the construction worker who found Chelsea's remains, testified. He said he was hauling dirt on property he owned in Ash Township when he noticed something off to his left and saw a body. The defense argued Chelsea was fatally injured during consensual sex with Clay. During cross-examination, Chelsea's friend was asked about her sexual preferences. The friend said Chelsea did not like aggressive or violent sex. Jessica, the mother of Daniel's child, testified for the prosecution. She described Chelsea's costume and said it was homemade with leaves, a purple wig, and a jug. She said Daniel never mentioned Chelsea until he was arrested. She recounted his voicemail saying he was sorry and would be gone for a long time. The prosecution argued the evidence pointed to Daniel offering Chelsea a ride when she was desperate and without her phone. Shortly after she got in the car, he attacked, sexually assaulted, and killed her. The medical examiner could not say with absolute certainty due to the passage of time, but stated she was 99.9% sure Chelsea did not die from being choked. Intense pressure must be applied for several minutes to kill someone by strangulation. The injuries to her head, nose, jaw, eye sockets, and teeth told a different story. The way her costume had been torn at the straps and crotch painted a picture of violent force. Daniel testified in his own defense. He was asked if he intended to cause her death. He said no. He was asked if he murdered Chelsea Bruck. He said no. He said he did not mean for her to die and did not mean for this to end the way it did. Under cross-examination, the prosecutor questioned him about the act he insisted was consensual. Daniel had repeatedly said he choked her for no more than 20 to 30 seconds. The prosecutor asked if he was tailoring his testimony to conform to expert testimony about the length of time required to lose consciousness. Daniel said no. There was no dispute that Daniel had killed Chelsea. He had already admitted it. The jury had to decide whether it was intentional or an accident. After a few hours of deliberation, the jury found him guilty. The verdict was guilty of felony murder in the death of Chelsea Bruck. This was first-degree murder. The jury decided it was not premeditated, but that Chelsea Bruck was killed while another felony was in progress, either kidnapping or criminal sexual conduct. The jury completely rejected Daniel's claim that the encounter was consensual. At sentencing, Leandra Bruck, Chelsea's mother, told Daniel she forgave him. She wore purple, her daughter's favorite color, and a Crime Stoppers pin with Chelsea's face on it. She handed him a Bible. She said forgiveness did not mean she would forget, but for her own peace she had to forgive. Daniel sat expressionless. Leandra spoke about an important lesson from the loss of Chelsea. Do not leave your friends alone. If you go somewhere as a group, leave as that same group. Do not assume they will be okay. She said the family still expected Chelsea to walk in the back door. The judge addressed Daniel directly. He said it was very clear that Daniel was a liar, a rapist, and a killer. Daniel Clay was sentenced to mandatory life in prison without the possibility of parole. He was later sentenced to serve 40 to 75 years for sexually assaulting the woman in the apartment. The judge said it was a brutal rape, degrading and dehumanizing. He called Daniel an opportunist and a predator, a liar, and a serial rapist. Daniel appealed his conviction. The sentence was upheld. A scholarship in Chelsea's name was established in the culinary arts program at Washtenaw Community College, the place she had planned to attend. Another Halloween party had ended, an evening filled with laughter, celebration, and chaos. Everyone left, already anticipating the stories they would share the next day. Chelsea Bruck was simply trying to find her way home. She planned to join the laughter the next morning with everyone else. Her night had been surrounded by costumes and pretend. But what she faced in those final moments was no mask or fantasy. The nightmare was real.